Without a doubt, Ukraine is one of the best European countries that I've been to. I'm just talking from a tourist experience. Visiting a place and living in a place are two completely different things. I want to break down all the things that I really love about this country. The number one thing that I really love about Ukraine are the people. Ukrainian people have such a awesome energy and vibe to them. They're extremely friendly. You know, there's a lot of really masculine men here, even in the military. They're super scary and bulky looking. But when they look at you, all you gotta do is like give them a nod or smile. They'll respond with the same energy. They're very, very kind, even though sometimes they look scary. Polish people are not the most friendly. In Krakow, yes, people are friendly, but it's most of the time like you have to smile first or say hi and they'll smile back. Whereas here in Ukraine, they'll actually smile towards you first. My impression of Eastern Europeans and this side of the world is that they're all very, very serious people, but Ukrainians are very different than a lot of other Eastern European people that I've met. There's this really amazing sense of pride within the people because they're going through this very tough situation right now. When I was in Lviv, I went with my friend. Her family picked us up from the train station and took me to my hostel. Her mom even made me like a nice little dinner, which was really, really nice. And then here in Kyiv, the mom of one of my friends from Poland, who's Ukrainian, took care of me here, showed me to a bunch of places. I felt such a great sense of hospitality being here. And I think it's because I have Ukrainian friends that I was able to experience that. In Kyiv, you see international people, but I think because of the war, it's not like a crazy amount of them. Being Asian on this side of the world, yes, I look different and people look at me with curiosity, but it's always like a kind energy. This part of the world, it's very similar to my Chinese culture. Even though the people don't look like me, I think the culture is similar enough where I do feel quite comfortable here. I don't know if I would live here. Language is very, very difficult. As a foreigner living here, you're going to have to learn Ukrainian. I would only really learn it if I end up with like a Ukrainian partner. I already speak 4 languages, so trying to add another one is very difficult. When you walk around, you're gonna see a lot of the Cyrillic, I think that's how you say it, alphabet. It takes a while to really get used to what everything is saying because they share a lot of letters with like the English alphabet. I'll have to read something and then really sound it out like a baby in order to figure out what's going on. But it's interesting because a lot of the words are actually very similar to English words or Spanish words. So for example, library here is biblioteca and they just spell it with their own alphabet. Market is market, cafe is cafe. Also, after visiting Lviv and Kyiv, I have to say that both cities are very different. I personally would live in Lviv, but I think Kyiv is a more rich cultural experience. So if you're coming here as a tourist, I definitely think Kyiv would be the best place to check out. In the future, I would like to come back and check out Odessa. I hear a lot of really good things about that place as well. I also like that there's a tremendous respect for men and the father here. This is something that I really admire about Eastern cultures that we don't really have in the West. I talk about this a lot in my videos. In America, the overall culture definitely feels like it pushes this anti-man sentiment. And I'm not saying that all American women are anti-man or anything. They're definitely a lot more feminist than a lot of other places in the world. I feel like the women here are very strong, beautiful, and confident. They do it in a way that doesn't overpower or overtake the men. The men has their jobs, the women have their jobs. It doesn't feel like there's a competition in between the genders. That leads me to the women. Ukraine, like many countries around the world, has fame for their women. Yes, it is true, the women here are very beautiful, but there are some stipulations that come with that. So if you go to Colombia, that's probably the place where I've seen the sexiest women in the world when it comes to the face, the way they take care of themselves, how they walk around, like the whole entire package, even the way that they talk. For me, that's like my point of reference. I would say like on a scale of 1 to 10, Colombian women are probably like a 9, 9.5. If you just take looks. Coming here to Ukraine, I would say the women are around an 8.5 because it's a different kind of beauty. So I'm gonna make a separate video about this, but let me try to explain. The women here carry themselves in this manner that is very confident. They know they're sexy, but they do it in a classy way, if that makes sense. Problem with a lot of Latin America, a lot of the women dress extremely revealing. But here, I think the women strike a perfect balance of being able to be very sexy and beautiful without showing everything. Kind of have that classy, sexy, demure look. That's why I really like Ukrainian women. For what I want for my image, I feel like they fit that archetype of what I would like from a partner. The women here are extremely loyal. They're not super promiscuous like a lot of women in Colombia or Brazil or even in the US right now. It's a different kind of beauty. I'm gonna talk as a guy right now, so if you're a girl, please don't get offended by this. Ukrainian bodies are extremely nice, just everything. They're thinner than the Latin body. I think closer to what I like, a little more of my taste. But the face is very hit or miss. There's this interesting trend right now where a lot of women will get plastic surgery done on their face. The most popular one is the lip filler. In Colombia, a lot of women get stuff done, maybe like a nose job, and a lot of their bodies done, usually like the boobs. But here, the bodies are a lot more natural. but they do a lot more surgery to the face, and I'm not the biggest fan of that at all. I'm gonna be real. It's quite difficult to find like natural beauty here, even though it does exist. Slavic women, and this applies to Poland and here in Ukraine, don't age the best. I'm not saying all of them age poorly, but because of their genetics and because unfortunately a lot of them smoke and a lot of them drink a lot, by the time they're around 30, you can tell that aging has hit them quite hard. And as an Asian person, right, my standards for aging are quite high. For me, I think Black people and Asian people age the best. And I think that's why Latin people age so well, because they have a lot of Black blood. Slavic people and I guess just white people in general don't age the best. But I think if it comes to like what I would want from a long-term partner, a long-term relationship, I feel like Ukrainians are a lot closer to what I would like than when I was in Colombia. Their values and their morals, their respect for men, and there being a lot of present fathers here make them better suited to be like long-term partners. Also a really funny comment. Women's fashion here is really fantastic. Here in Kyiv, you're gonna see the most diversity of styles and fits and everything. But for some reason, a lot of Ukrainian girls have like never heard of a bra or something. They just walk around without a bra. I know it's a really guy comment, but it's just something that I noticed. One of the things that I didn't expect about being here, Ukraine is a country with very rich history. The architecture, the culture, food, the language, and just seeing how diverse the population is. It's a very culturally rich experience. Poland is cool, and I'm having a lot of fun there, but it's quite boring in comparison to Ukraine. I feel like Ukraine has just a lot more to offer from a cultural standpoint. If you go to all the monuments, you eat the food, you talk to the people, it just feels a lot more interesting. One of my subscribers made this comment that in the US we're very culturally rich. I disagree, because the America itself doesn't really have a culture like that. We have a bunch of other people who bring their cultures to the US, which makes it very culturally diverse, but it doesn't mean it's culturally rich. Ukraine has a lot of different people that look very, very different, but it's a very culturally rich country. Very similar to Colombia, actually. Colombia is a very culturally rich country because everywhere you go, is Bogota or Medellin or the coffee region or the coast or the desert, the people look different, they have different accents, they have different food. So I was very pleasantly surprised by the food here. It is quite similar to Polish cuisine. I feel like it has a lot more flavor, a lot more variety, and a lot more spice. Ukrainian soup is fantastic. Borscht is one of my favorite soups ever. Cuisine here is like a mix of obviously like potatoes and meat, but the meat is spiced very well, and it just has like a lot of flavor. I don't think I've had a bad meal since I've been here. There's a lot of Georgian people here, and Georgian cuisine is also very good. There are quite a few Asian restaurants all around as well, but the Asian food is kind of so-so. Normally when I go somewhere, I try to find the Asian restaurants, but I found myself here really wanting to try as much Ukrainian food as possible. Something I also really love about this place is that it is very, very safe. There is always like a low level of pickpocketing that you have to worry about, but it's not the same as a place like Italy or maybe Barcelona in Spain, and definitely not as bad as many places in Latin America like Colombia. Colombia and Ukraine are both relatively poor countries. Colombia may be a little poor right now. Despite of it being, I guess, a poor country, I don't feel like people are out to get me the same way that they are in Colombia. Like, you know, in Colombia, people are very friendly, but you can't trust anybody, especially in the big cities. But here, Kyiv is the capital city. Me walking around with my camera or walking around with my luggage, I have no fear that someone's gonna pull up with a gun and try to rob me. That's something that I really appreciate being in like Slavic countries, or especially a lot of countries that were former communist areas, like in China and Russia and a lot of these places. A lot of those values of social order and peace have trickled down through the generations, so a lot of these countries still remain relatively safe. So I want to say an interesting story actually. When I was in Lviv, it was crazy. At 5 in the morning, I heard someone open my door and come in. I was like, what the F? I guess I accidentally forgot to lock it. And then I went to the hallway and I just saw some random guy standing there. And I'm like, hello, can I help you? And he looked at me and just started mumbling some stuff. He was really, really drunk. And then I turned on the light and he started taking off his shoes, and I had to direct him towards the door and get him out of the house, and I was super polite about it. But I was really scared because if I found somebody in my house when I was in Colombia, I would have gone straight for like a knife or some form of weapon, because that would have been super, super scary. But that guy was just like a drunk guy that I guess found his way into my apartment somehow. A really scary moment, honestly, looking back, but it just comes to show that it wasn't a crazy or a violent experience, thankfully. So I'm happy I was able to resolve that peacefully. The only issue, obviously, is the war going on right now. So every time you hear like the sirens, there's like a low level of stress and anxiety all the time that you can't really shake. And even though most of the fighting is in the east side of Ukraine, there's always that potential chance that a missile could land in Kyiv. So every time I hear the alarms, I get a little bit anxious. But it seems like the Ukrainian people are so used to it that every time there's a siren, they just continue on their everyday life. All the malls and the stores, they all shut down for the duration of the sirens, but that usually lasts around 30 minutes to about an hour. And once everything is back to normal, then you can go live your life normally. So I've made several comments that Ukraine reminds me a lot of Colombia. It's kind of how the culture is, how friendly the people are. You see a lot of the public transportation, the buses remind me of the buses from Colombia. Also because of the taste in interior design. Something that I really love about Ukraine compared to Poland is that their taste is fantastic. You go into some of these restaurants and some of these buildings, it's a marvel to just look at the architecture and the design. Some of the metro stations that you'll see here in Ukraine are gorgeous. Walking around the city, admiring the buildings and the architecture and everything. The architecture here is phenomenal. The mix of the old buildings with the new buildings, and then all the government buildings are also very, very beautiful. You can tell that they put a lot of effort into maintaining the city, and I really appreciate that a lot. This is something that I really admire about Europe because we don't have the same history in architecture in the US because we're still a relatively young country. But many European countries have super, super long histories, and that's why a lot of this architecture hits differently. I'm not the biggest history buff. It's just something that I'm not used to coming from the US. I would say the best part about Ukraine, it's very, very affordable. Compared to Poland, I would say it's about 20-30% cheaper, but you can get a really good meal at a nice restaurant from around $10 to $12. The Ukrainian hot dog I had was like $1. You can easily get full just off of $5. The overall package of Ukraine has been very impressive. It's a shame that they're going through war right now. And I'm not gonna say that, oh, wow, everybody should visit Ukraine right now because I don't wanna understate the potential danger of the war and everything. Based on what you see on the news, you would think that, oh, the whole entire country's in a war. It's like a war zone, everything's destroyed. But coming here is completely different to what I expected. It exceeded my expectations significantly. Huge shout out to the Ukrainian people for being so welcoming and kind to me. I had such an amazing experience here and I cannot wait to come back. I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.